evening, everyone. I am so grateful to be here with the Labor Campaign for Single-Payer Healthcare, Healthcare Now, and so many healthcare champions who are organizing to finally guarantee healthcare to everyone as a human right. As we officially begin the Biden administration, I know that many of you are wondering about the future of Medicare for All. And as the proud author of the Medicare for All Act in the House, I'm honored to be joining you for this strategy session. I want to first recognize the tremendous victory we achieved in defeating Donald Trump. And I want to especially thank young people, progressives, Black, Brown, and Indigenous voters who have been building infrastructure in key states like Georgia and Arizona and turned out in record numbers this year because they understood what was at stake. This victory took every one of us, transforming Joe Biden's platform into the most progressive of any presidential nominee in recent memory, and working to turn out people for a better tomorrow. And we did, at the same time, re-elect every single incumbent who co-sponsored Medicare for All, including 8 who were running in swing districts. So let's be clear. We took back the White House. We flipped the Senate. We kept the House. And we got a mandate, clear direction to ensure that this new administration does not defend the status quo, but delivers the very real and urgent change that people need in their lives. That's why we can't let up on our fight for Medicare for All. We have made tremendous gains in broadening and deepening our coalition, but we still have a lot of work left to do when it comes to building our national grassroots movement. While we celebrate that we had historic congressional hearings on Medicare for All in the last session, we must ensure that Medicare for All continues to be a critical part of the legislative conversation in this new session. That includes additional hearings, such as the commitment I received in the Small Business Committee. And with our new members of Congress, including 8 new progressives that we all helped elect, we need to work to make sure that we have even more co-sponsors on my Medicare for All bill when it's introduced next month. I don't want to sugarcoat the fight that we have in front of us. This moment in history seems tailor-made in so many ways to ensure finally that every person in America is guaranteed healthcare by the government. Those who have supported a single-payer system have only redoubled their belief in that system during the pandemic. Even Fox News had an exit poll during the November election that showed that 72% of people supported government-run healthcare. But the challenges are also clear. Because of a well-funded, extensive misinformation campaign from the for-profit healthcare industry, the truth is that large majorities of the American people have become even more solidified in recent polling about maintaining private health insurance, even as they support a transition to guaranteed public health care. And so even the simple incremental step of establishing a public option that is administered by Medicare and not private insurance companies is now being attacked by those same for-profit companies that benefit from the status quo. Now more than ever, Democrats must not let the industry or Republican talking points dictate our strategy. But we also must be clear about the challenges that face us. We need to continue to build our movement, particularly in places where elected officials in Congress are not already supportive of Medicare for All. That means empowering our base with the best arguments and investing in organizing in local infrastructure. We have to build the public case for Medicare for All through hearings in the House and through a series of steps that establish the foundational pieces of Medicare for All. With this new administration and a Democratic Senate alongside our Democratic House, we'll have even more opportunities to push forward the legislative groundwork for Medicare for All while continuing to build the demand at the grassroots. Last year, Senator Sanders asked me to serve as the co-chair of the Biden-Sanders Unity Task Force on Health Policy. My goal became to incorporate as many of the foundational elements of Medicare for All into the Biden platform in order to put us on a more direct path to ensuring that every person has health care. Through those negotiations with the Biden team, we gained their commitment to many progressive proposals that we will fight to preserve as the floor and not the ceiling. I believe the election results in Georgia only reiterated what the American people told us in November, that we have a mandate to deliver real change in this new Congress that includes the foundational elements of Medicare for All, that includes beginning the process of untethering healthcare from jobs by automatically covering anyone who becomes unemployed through Medicare. It means providing more people with reliable public health insurance by lowering Medicare's eligibility age to 50 and covering those under 25. It means a bold prescription drug pricing plan that ensures that no American is paying more for their prescription drugs than anyone in any other country. It also means finally providing health care for immigrants, including eliminating the restrictions on safety net services for immigrants that were put into law decades ago. And it means investing in addressing our long-term care crisis. Our task force made many of these policies part and parcel of the Biden campaign promise. And already President Biden has put into his COVID relief package bold changes that include some of these commitments, such as hiring 100,000 public health workers and ensuring that COVID treatment and the vaccine are free to every single person across America. And President Biden's Build Back Better agenda includes what we negotiated last summer, the creation of 600,000 new long-term care jobs so that we can eliminate the 800,000 person waiting list and give people a choice of having their loved ones receive care at home. That is thanks to your work, as my Medicare for All bill was the first ever to include long-term care. These are just the beginning. You all know me and my background as an organizer for working people, and you know that ensuring a single-payer health system is my top priority. I'm going to continue pushing President Biden and his administration, including Secretary Becerra, who we know supports Medicare for All. And I'm going to continue relying on all of you to be organizing alongside me every step of the way, because we all know that Medicare for All isn't just what we believe in, it's what America needs. Our accomplishments in the last 2 years in Congress, with the first ever hearings on Medicare for All, on the task force, at the ballot box, and on the ground, prove that we can do this. We can achieve real progressive steps that begin to transform our healthcare system into what we know we need. It will take all of us standing up, speaking out, organizing, and fighting to demand healthcare as a human right. And when it happens, when we make Medicare for All a reality, it will be because of you, because of all of us. So thank you for the work you've already done. Thank you for the work you'll continue to do, and thank you for making this progressive movement possible. I am so proud to be in this fight alongside you.
Comments? I think she thinks that in the next 2 years, before the next elections and new, hopefully progressive people appointed to Congress or elected to Congress, that there's no chance for a Medicare for All bill being passed. But she says that if the public option that, Biden has talked about is run by the government, say through Medicare, and does not involve Medicare Advantage, that this would be a good incremental step. Another one would be lowering the age of Medicare eligibility to 60, and anybody below the age of 24 or whatever it was are good incremental steps. And the more people that have experience with Medicare, the more people are going to want it and won't want it taken away. So I think that's where she's coming from when she talks about the public option. And she also talks about trying to get health insurance divorced from your employment. So she wants to do these things that I think we all want to do, but there are some incremental things in there that some people do not want to see done. The other thing is, think about all those states that did not expand their Medicaid. I think there's like 20 or some down in the Southeast particularly, that they would become eligible for the public option, buy-in or whatever, taken. If they didn't have insurance, they could join Medicare.
I just have a comment. I thought her, given how many jobs have been lost, and I don't know, maybe somebody here knows in Washington State or nationally, how many people who were employed in early 2020 are now unemployed because of the pandemic. But I thought that her brief comment about untethering healthcare from employment is a real talking point that is hitting home right now publicly to a lot of people who, quite frankly, never gave a hoot about whether other people had jobs or not, or, you know, whatever, because it's just happened on such a widespread scale now that you can't look away from it. And it would be an interesting thing to get some numbers, if somebody has them or knows what to get them, on at the end of 2020, how many Washingtonians who were insured prior to the pandemic are now uninsured.
One of our conference strategy questions, we have these 5 strategy questions, is obviously Biden is president and Democrats.
Excuse me here. I was getting into the next video.
Oh. I thought it was one of the.
I can't cite the exact numbers, but I have read that quite a few employers who have had to lay off workers are still paying for their health insurance. So that has muted the effect of uninsurance. And so fewer people are being tossed off of insurance altogether.
But
So,
how long will that go on? I mean, I was an employer for 30 years. You can't maintain that indefinitely.
right. They can't, but their theory, I think, in doing it is that it's going to be limited. But so far, the uninsurance rate went up a bit, and then it's gone down, and it's only this much above where it was before, I think from 6% to 7%, something like
I'm
that.
provoked. I'm provoked. Talking to Wells Fargo, you know, every employee at Wells Fargo tells me we gotta have a great health plan. But I just say hi. They are the face of a company that has foreclosed on homes by computer error, and people were actually kicked out of their houses before they, Wells Fargo is a creepy entity. So these young faces are the face of that company just because all they got to do is give them health care, and they defend a major criminal corporation. So yeah, that breaking the ball and chain. They're happy to work at Wells Fargo just for health care. That's a cheap price to pay to keep people on your in your army or whatever.
So Julie,
Yeah.
you're going to make a comment about Pramila's support for long-term care, which is very important. I'll give you an anecdote. I've had it for decades and decades to show you the power of the capitalist system. It's been sold and resold over the years. I'm at the 4th company, and each time it's sold to some new company, my premiums go up. It's now well over 30,000, 33,000 a year. It's going to be 4,000, and it's just driven by, they're not making enough profit. They sell it, and the next company is unhappy about the profits. They sell it each time. The premiums go up, and I complained to the Attorney General's office at the state of Washington, and they looked at the fine print of the original contract, and they said, "Sorry, Dr. Martin, there's nothing you could do about it. They have the right to do that by your contract, to constantly increase the premium." But you need it because if long-term care, if it's a reasonably good long-term care in a situation in a nursing home, it's like $10,000 a month. It's incredibly high. So people really need that. But it's all, everything is about making money. It's all about profit. That's all they give a damn about.
Okay, Betty, you were trying to say something.
Wait a minute, hold it. Oh, jeez. Hello. Can
Yep.
you hear me? Yeah.
I can hear you.
So I don't know who did. Maybe I should direct this to David, because you presented it, David. But what I'm trying to understand from Pramila's presentation is the following. Pramila is the author of 1384. And what I heard, unless I misheard, she wasn't really talking much about 1384, her bill for single payer. Instead, she was talking about like deviating from that and accepting something that's incremental. Like, is anybody else like livid about this?
Well, she said she was pushing
Okay.
for congressional hearings on 1384, and she would continue to press that at the same time as,
When would she push hearings on 1384? I didn't get that. When did she say she would do that?
I don't think she said.
well,
I think that
She
they
didn't
were-
say. Well, and she had an opportunity, excuse me, she had an opportunity to do that with Force the Vote, and she didn't. And she didn't speak about it, even though some of her constituents, including us over here on Vashon,
Yep.
called her and asked her position on Force the Vote on the floor, holding Pelosi in abeyance until there was a vote on single payer. And until now, we have not heard one word from Pramila. So when I listened to what she said, it sounded like she was telling us, yes, I'm the author of 1384, all the wonderful things that all of us want. But in the meantime, we've got to go back to incrementalism. Like, what the heck is that? David, can you answer that, or can anyone else? I don't want to just put it on you.
well, she said in the next 2 years, there's no chance of passing Medicare for all. But
Why?
In the next 2 years, excuse me, let me just comment on that.
does
In
this,
the next 2 years, if there's no chance of passing Medicare for all, after that, there won't be any chance at all. So what the hell is she talking about?
well, she's also saying that she is pushing.
Hold on. My plug. Sorry, David, I keep losing my plug. Excuse me, sorry. I don't mean to sound that hysterical, Sarah. I'm not usually that crazy, even though I am crazy. Okay, David.
She is dropping her bill like the first week or two in February. And the push from this conference I was talking about was to get more legislatures to sponsor that bill, when it's dropped. And they're going to try to get congressional hearings, and Pramila made reference to some hearings they had in the last Congress that were pretty lousy hearings. They were supposedly on Medicare for all, but they didn't really Medicare for all as much as some other stuff. But anyway, she's got it in her head, but she's also trying to figure out, to get as many people into Medicare, even though it's some sort of a public option, so that once they experience Medicare, they're going to be more on the vote for Medicare for all in the next congressional session, 2022. So that's her thinking on it.
What, can I ask a question? She didn't say anything in that message to the group about the emergency Medicare, during the pandemic. What happened to that? What happened to that bill? I thought that was going to be the strategy for getting people to really think about, to really understand what it would be like, would be to get emergency during the pandemic and that's Bernie's approach, isn't it? With the Reconciliation Act, is to get an emergency Medicare for all bill adopted.
Well, I think she made reference to that in that people who were affected by the pandemic would get covered, you know, and that would presumably under some kind of public insurance, because, you know, they wouldn't have to pay private insurance to get treated or tested for it. And I think that's part of the Emergency Guarantee Act or whatever it is. That may have been talked about in other parts of the Healthcare Now weekend.
Oh,
But Pramila wasn't there. She just gave the Friday night address.
right, but that's a really important question strategically, because if people aren't ready, which I dispute, you know, that's what the centrists keep telling us every year, in and out. It doesn't matter if there's a Democratic majority in both houses of Congress and the Democrat in the White House. It's never the right time, you know, but this whole issue about how incredibly terrible the pandemic is, how many people have not only have died, but how many people have permanent disabling conditions for which they cannot possibly get the kind of health care that they need. And who knows, you know, what else is going to happen. I mean, really, it doesn't even seem like we even know. So it seems like, and then there's all the people who are basically economically destitute, and people are getting, you know, so many more people are going to be houseless. We're going to have hundreds of thousands of people living on the streets. It just seems like that is a good, you know, that's the strategy, is to get some kind of really comprehensive health care out there as a measure to deal with the pandemic. And, you know, the capitalists they're not going to be able to sell anything to people because people have no purchasing power. I mean, it's really short-sighted. But anyway, I just, I'm kind of amazed that this whole discussion about the replacement for 1384 isn't somehow, you know, the discussion wasn't really connected to a strategy of how do you get that people to understand what it would be like.
There wasn't any talk about replacing 1384, but I could show you the next.
Oh, is it going to have the same number?
Well, hopefully.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, you know, she mentioned 4 tweaks to it that we would all agree are good tweaks. But we could, the first strategy question we could deal with there is, how do we keep momentum on Medicare for all when centrist Democrats leadership is likely to push incrementalism? You want to see that in a video now?
Sure.
Yeah.
It kind of addresses what we've been talking about here.
One of our conference strategy questions, we have these 5 strategy questions, is obviously Biden is president and Democrats, you know, now control the House and the Senate. How do we keep momentum on Medicare for all when, you know, Democratic leadership is likely to introduce incremental health reforms? You know, are there any measures short of Medicare for all that would actually advance our movement? Can you help us like kind of frame this question for the rest of the conference?
Yep, good contentious question, Ben.
You lost the video.
It's become a tiny little thing, David.
Already heard a lot from some really great speakers over the past week, including Paul Song and Diane Archer, about what kinds of reforms would put us on a path to Medicare for all. And
David, there's just a speck in the middle of the screen.
Eligibility age.
Yeah, it's minimized.
Expanding Medicare and Medicaid. And
a postage stamp.
The duration of the pandemic.
There.
Improving traditional Medicare, all those things, you know, are things that would make it easier for us to pass Medicare for all.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
Other things I just throw into that pot include essential solidaric reforms like ending the Hyde Amendment and expanding public insurance to our undocumented brothers and sisters, which California is leading the nation on. And I'm so happy to see so many people from California today. So any reform where you're really chipping away at the divisions in our healthcare system, right? You need an abortion, sorry, this program won't cover you, or you're undocumented, don't qualify, or you're on this plan, and so you not allowed into this network. That's something that we can get behind because it's putting us on a path to a truly everybody in, nobody out system. And of course, there are those reforms which serve to further entrench the existing for-profit private health insurance industry. So stuff like adding subsidies for ACA plans, which in addition to being a corporate giveaway, is just really the weakest possible answer to the health insurance crisis that we're facing. 35 million people uninsured and another 65 million with really bad insurance. And of course, then there's the public option, which rather than expands an existing public insurance, creates another program that isn't backed by the mandatory spending of Medicare. And for that reason, I think risk pool issues are doomed to end it. So we're always fighting for Medicare for all, but we have sort of a rough litmus test, I think, to adjudicate between immediate reforms. Does the reform push us down the road to Medicare for all, or does it not? So what we want to do with these questions really is think about how to answer this question for ourselves and our organizations. First axiom of good organizing: all organizing is local. And I'm really happy to be able to take some time to think about that this weekend. Sometimes we're just like really in the nitty gritty and we don't get to like sort of take a step back and think more broader and strategically. You may be going through this conference with your local group, your local DSA chapter or a single payer group. I'm a Boston DSA member. I'm also a member of MassCare, which is the state coalition here in Massachusetts. And then of course, Healthcare Now. And I'm going to be thinking, and I want all of you to be thinking sort of individually and collectively about what campaign, like what concrete campaigns, what goals for our community, our district, our state makes sense in light of these opportunities and the situation that we're in right now. So of course, every group is coming to the conference with a different situation. Organizing looks different in Boston than it does in rural Georgia. So this is just something we all have to wrestle with for ourselves and our groups. And to be thinking concretely about how to push legislators in the coming fights over the immediate COVID package, right? Where we are going to have a chance to maybe get some of those reforms that would put us on a path to Medicare for all. And then there will be just, of course, a reckoning later over the uninsurance crisis that's been precipitated by COVID and made much worse by COVID. And of course, the longer term fight for Medicare for all. And I think, the reason that I want to emphasize thinking locally, I can really feel the frustration of those of us, advocates who have lived through the takeoff period of Medicare for all, and wondering why we've stalled our progress a little bit, right? We jumped, like maybe we had double the number of co-sponsors of the Medicare for all bill when Trump took office in 2016. And then over the last couple of years, as Amira was talking about last night, we did get some really good co-sponsors. We got Lloyd Doggett, who's on important committees, and Joe Kennedy, who's actually not in Congress anymore, but he was important at that time. And so there were definitely some key wins during the last couple of years, but we haven't seen another leap like that first one that we made after Bernie Sanders ran on Medicare for all. And I think the way forward here is to realize that, we've completed level 1, but the next level is going to be harder, right? There's not a lot of low-hanging fruit left. And that's not to dismiss the incredible progress that we've made. Many of us in this movement, we're in this movement before Bernie Sanders ran for president, before Medicare for all was a household name. We carried the torch through the darkness in a very hostile environment to Medicare for all. And over the last couple of years, we got to watch the seed that we planted bloom. And we should all be really proud of that and not forget that, even as we look ahead to what's difficult. But I think that what I've really learned from watching all these great presentations over the week is that, the next half of reps that we have to move to pass this bill are a lot more difficult. They're in wealthier, whiter districts. Many of them are on like the swing district end of the spectrum. So they're not in like solidly blue districts, and they may not have as much like progressive organizing in general happening in these districts. So there's just sort of like an infrastructure problem there. And so we have a lot of work to do. And because all reps are accountable to their constituents only, they care very little about general public opinion. And I would even go so far as to say, they don't care about their constituents' opinion all that much. They really care about whether we, Medicare for all activists in their district, intend to hold them accountable for their legislative decisions. And I think this is the most important part, have the capacity to do so. And so calling your reps, emailing them, those are going to be good first starts, but that's not going to cut it, I think, for the next phase. And this is where I'd really like to hear from you all on the Gather space about, when you answer this question, because I really want to hear from everybody, and I'm so looking forward to marinating on all this. But for me, I think intentional coalition-led organizing, bringing together groups in our communities, have lots of members, lots of investment in transforming our healthcare system, and building a network that can hold our legislators accountable and combat the inevitable onslaught of insurer money that we're about to experience. That's what's going to get us, I think, through the next phase.
Okay.
So
So
I'm disappointed that she's not playing piano for us.
why is that?
Right.
Tell me more about her.
She works for Healthcare Now. She's one of the staff members. She and Ben Day, I think, are the only two of them. He was up in the right side there. And I think later on, I heard that, they had problems with financing and they both had to go on extended sabbaticals. But now they're back. But I think everybody, did you have a chance to attend much, Kathleen?
You're on mute.
You did.
Actually, I didn't. I'm so sorry. I did not.
Well, as I said, there's a lot of the complete 45-minute sessions are available, and I can give you links to them. This was, say, a third or a quarter of one of the sessions, workshops and breakout groups. But they're pretty much all there. In fact, if you go to the healthcarenow.org website, you can dial them up. And I think there are really a lot of really good people there. The other guy was Mark Dudzik, who was in that triangle there on the upper left, labor campaign for single payer, and he talked about unions and stuff.
I just want to say something because I think Betty is recognizing a strategy that Pramila is utilizing right now. I just listened to her presentation on immigration just before this meeting. And I think that she is utilizing that as a strategy because the problems, and immigration is a good example, just like healthcare, it's a huge lift. It's a huge lift. It involves so many different areas. And it's so big that people are terrified of trying to implement it. They may even pass a bill and just not do anything about it because it's a huge lift. And right now we're in the middle of this pandemic, which is also a huge lift. And I think that she did talk about working with Bernie on both an immigration strategy and a healthcare strategy, and that she's working with him. And let me see what else she said. Took some notes here. But the things, I don't think that it's, I don't know about criticizing the fact that she's doing this incremental thing. I think that she actually has a plan for how it could come together. But she didn't talk about that in this presentation, how it was all going to come together. But I do think that she recognizes that, gosh, if we get part of this, and just like David was saying, if we get people into that, the healthcare, what was it called again? HCG, something or other.
Healthcare Emergency Guarantee Act.
Thank you, emergency guarantee. I couldn't remember the word guarantee. Emergency.
That's what it used to be
Once
called.
I remember guarantee, I can say it. But thank you. Yeah, and that is once people get into that, and I think they recognize that Medicare has the opportunity to really make a difference, and they see how easy it is, I think that they will choose that, and then they can go to their, you know, representatives and senators and say, look, I was on that Healthcare Emergency Guarantee Act, and that was so cool. Why aren't we doing that across the nation? And then they'll start the impetus, and it will begin to come from the bottom up. And we will have this bill that is still there. The foundations of that bill are still there, and they're so broad and they're so wonderful that I don't know about you, I was so excited when I read that bill. It was great. And so I honestly think that that was kind of her way of seeing that it might work. With immigration, she's working on that deportation. I'm sorry, that deportation thing, and the incarceration, and the private prisons that people are being held in. So they're kind of working on all of that. And
Well, I think what people have pointed out is in her presentation at this the one payer states thing, she didn't even mention the Healthcare Emergency Guarantee Act as a temporary solution
she
for
talked
people. And so maybe she's still promoting it. We don't know.
Well, I know that she said that she was working with Bernie, and she and Bernie conceived that.
Yes, I realize that.
Yeah. So I think that she was working in coalition with him. So I have to assume that that's what was happening there.
Well, I think they're waiting to see what Biden's, executive orders are going to do, and maybe he'll implement some of the things that are in that Healthcare Emergency Guarantee Act.
I didn't think that his Biden care, or whatever he's calling it.
Yeah.
I don't think that was what they're gonna do.
Biden care, I think, was just an expansion of the Affordable Care Act in some manner, providing subsidies for people to buy into it or something like that. I wouldn't wait for Biden to do anything.
No.
I would just go for it.
He won't do anything. In fact, his idea is he has two, all I've seen is, I've been looking at everything every single day, looking to see what they're proposing. All I've seen is, like you say, Dana, payment of subsidies for COBRA, and for
Right.
the states that didn't expand Medicaid, making the subsidies available for more insurance, and paying for vaccine. That's basically it. That's his entire healthcare plan. There's nothing else. Like people who are underinsured or don't have anything now. I mean, he doesn't even have a plan for universal insurance. And they actually, the spokesperson said, this is not universal, what we're proposing. It's still not even universal during the pandemic. That's just like so horrible to me, that they can't even come up with something that on a temporary basis that will cover all the people who are suffering.
Well, we could show another little piece of video here of the panelists from Healthcare Now. What outcomes in 2021 would mean it was a successful year for Medicare for All? You want to take a look at that?
Yeah. Before we allow ourselves to get too discouraged.
I know. Just like, we need to be realists though about Biden. He's not gonna, he said he'd veto it,
Yeah, so this is another strategy question that everyone is going to have a chance to answer. And honestly, this is a question that I think is so important, but I've kind of struggled with the answer actually. What could we win in 2021 that would really mean that we're moving the ball forward on Medicare for All? And I thought Amira's presentation yesterday really gave us some clear 2021 outcomes to fight for at the congressional level. We want to get at least
Yes.
co-sponsors when we first introduced the Medicare for All bills in the House and the Senate, as we had when we ended the last session, right? That's a really clear outcome that means we're going to be advancing this in Congress. And we also want to fight for hearings in the House and the Senate in the key committees where we haven't already got hearings.
Right.
I think that this is like a soft outcome, but it was really, really hard to get all those hearings for the first time in the House last session, and Democratic leadership fought us all the way. So it was actually a good test of our power as a movement, I thought. And personally, my focus is a little bit more on the outcomes at the grassroots level. And we talked about this on our podcast on Wednesday, for example. I think the most important thing we can accomplish in 2021 is growing our movement, getting more people involved, helping more supporters become leaders, particularly getting some organizing going in the parts of the country where we are not strong enough, like in the southeastern parts of the country. This is where I think NMU's distributed organizing campaigns are so important for our movement. But this is going to be incredibly hard to do while we still are facing COVID restrictions, at least for the first half of this year. So I'm really interested to hear what everyone else has to say about our 2021 goals. And let's also talk about, state legislative goals, trying to move the ball on state legislation. Let's talk about media goals. There are so many areas where I think we need to build capacity, and I want to really hear from all of you. So
they put it back on us.
Yeah.
Well, when when the people lead, the leaders follow, right?
Right.
Back on us. And
Right.
we should take the ball and run with it.
Well, I'd like to speak to what the previous speaker, the female, had mentioned. She said we need to hold accountable our congressional leaders
Yeah.
for what they promised to do.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what hashtag Force the Vote was to do, was to start that process. It wouldn't have come to a conclusion, I'm sure, but it would have started the process of holding them accountable to their supposed support of Medicare for All, if indeed they are supportive of it, or if they aren't supportive of it. I think that's really important. And so you probably have seen the letter that I forwarded to you from I think it's UNLV, again promoting the same thing. So I think that's an important thing that we need to do. We need to hold our congressional representatives accountable, and the way to do that is to have the grassroots come to their offices and put pressure on them.
Well,
Rand Paul, he ran that impeachment test vote. Pelosi should have run a Medicare test vote, right? What's the harm in just testing to see how many people are out there?
Correct.
And then, but she doesn't have the nerve for that. She doesn't have that.
I agree with you,
She's
Dave.
not ballsy like.
I think that came up a few times in the conference this past weekend, but I didn't hear any. I just heard references to it and not when they were actually talking about it. But I think it was a divisive movement in the single payer community. And I think on the one side, they said, well, they're never going to pass it. So let's see if we can use leverage to get committee people appointed. So I think they pulled back on Pelosi, but they didn't really get the committee people appointed.
Get their committee assignments, correct.
That's right, exactly. And it's a question of, as someone said, it's like, can't you chew gum and walk at the same time?
Right.
Well, obviously they can't.
Well, there was the dispute between Jimmy Dore and the people who wanted to focus on AOC and about her attempt to try to get onto committees, putting the priority on that, and then thinking that perhaps a hands up or down vote would be contradictory because Pelosi wouldn't allow the new would, as opposed to the old would, onto these committees that can actually do something. And then Pelosi slapped down AOC and didn't give her an appointment. And the Jimmy Dore thing kind of fell flat because, hands up on whether the legislators are going to say yes or no is pretty much a foregone conclusion because there's like 100 progressives in the Congress that would be most likely the only ones putting their hands up. So the rest would be on, in the middle ground. But I don't know if you see what I'm saying, but the hands up thing would have been pretty muted because you wouldn't be able to put that pressure on the individual Congress, actually House of Representatives people, because they're avoiding that totally. They don't think they have to decide on that because the pandemic is so overwhelming.
Correct. And hold them accountable is what that previous speaker was talking about. And so that's what we need to do. So I think if we do achieve a floor vote in the House in 2021, I think that would be one of our good accomplishments.
Yes. So
So,
Sarah,
I
what do you think?
would like to ask a question relevant to what you're saying, Dana. For those of us who are not new to healthcare reform of any kind and to single payer particularly, but are new to the state of Washington, or relatively new, I've been here 3 years now. Have any of Washington is such a rich state for advocacy for healthcare reform, unlike many other states. And I have to put it out to you all that sometimes I think you guys may lose sight of that because of this state and because of people like Pramila Jayapal, has in the last 5 to 10 years, 5 years, pre-Donald Trump, after Donald Trump, have PNHP, Healthcare for All Washington, Whole Washington, Healthcare is a Human Rights Washington. Have they ever all together done any kind of marketing, whether it is a newspaper ad in the Seattle Times, and this gets down to the nitty gritty, naming the representatives and entities who support, giving them a thumbs up, giving them a yay, good boy thing, as opposed to thumbs down. Has there ever been anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of. Does anyone else want to?
Does anybody know?
well, there's town halls. Pramila has town halls and they're always packed. And
No, I'm talking about for the general public.
We're talking about PR, right?
Yeah, I'm talking PR.
Yeah.
Because
Nothing.
that's the only way we even remotely got things off the ground in Nevada. And Nevada is a healthcare, or was prior to about 2010, a healthcare wasteland.
Mhm.
And I can't, you guys have this state has all these little groups. But for example, I asked you guys in December when I had my first meeting with you, or maybe it was November, I did not know which of the representatives, I knew about Pramila Jayapal, supported healthcare for all. I hadn't had time to really get on Derek Kilmer's my rep and look at him, and everybody kind of made a face. So I think that it's time to pull back from the trees and go back to the forest.
Mhm.
I think everybody's so focused on the legislature, but if what they're saying is true, on Congress, we need to back up and remind people across the board, not just people who are politically savvy or healthcare savvy, what's happening, because a lot of people do want national healthcare. They don't understand why it hasn't happened. So I have no idea. I know it costs a fortune to put an ad in the newspaper, but I just wonder why all these advocacy groups in the state of Washington aren't talking to each other and doing something about it.
Well, let me just say that.
Bring up a subject for a minute. I want to give you a little history that relates to the potential power of a third party. Many of my colleagues believe that there's no way in hell that the Democrats will ever do this for us. They're just owned by their special interests. And so remember the history when Bernie Sanders, the polls showed him to be ahead of Hillary. And the Democratic National Committee screwed him. They made damn sure he was like, and the young people were furious because they were all Bernie people, and lots of them. So he had the possibility of joining the Green Party and say, screw you, Democrats, I'm going to make a third party. And who knows that he might have done it with in that regard. So what do you think generally of a strategy of giving up on the Democrats and trying to get a third party? But it's hard, but it's not impossible. And maybe I think Bernie would have had a chance had he done that. He was just afraid to do it.
I think we got a better chance of primarying some of our legislators who haven't signed on to Pramila's bill. I think there's only 2 in our state that have signed on to Pramila's bill, and both of our senators are in the pockets of insurance companies. If you look at the lobbying money going to the insurance companies have gone to senators, I think they're in the top 5, both of them. So,
See, I agree with
obvious.
Sarah that kind of information publicized in advertising would be powerful, because really the people don't know. I mean, they do know this generally, that Congress is owned by the lobbyists, and by the corporate interests, but they don't know it specifically. And I do agree that like Susan Delbaney, I mean, I just tear my hair out, because I don't have anybody to work with here in my district. Really, I keep trying to find people, because I feel like, we should be having demonstrations outside her office on a regular basis, and we should expose how many people, how many deaths she's responsible for. I mean, we should expose the criminality of her position, but instead, we've had, the only thing I've been able to get to do with people in the district is to go on polite delegations talking to her staff, who are people who are completely ignorant. They're like the sons and daughters of her main funders, who know nothing and aren't even interested, in healthcare policy, and you can't get any place. And so it's just, it really is, it's clear that the only way that you can make those, members of Congress accountable is to actually embarrass them.
Right.
They have to be embarrassed, and people have to have some guts about, getting out the information, and whether, maybe we need to have, the not bread and puppets, but, the backbone campaign needs to, we go around from one, legislator's office to another. We have a huge group, a squad or something, and we just bring out all the information, try to get some, publicity. Maybe we get one of those giant rats, I think we're still allowed to have
takes
those,
money.
but, the ones that the labor
A
movement is
slush
used.
fund.
Yeah, but we need drama and action, and we need data, and we need to just, or how about bus ads? What about bus ads?
I think we have looked into that in the past.
Yeah,
We need young people to massively take this cause to social media. And that requires, that's why I'm asking, why are we not doing that? Why are not all of these disparate groups in Washington getting in the same boat and rowing in the same direction? And by pulling that in, I mean, once you start, that's how Bernie's movement got started.
Well, healthcare as a human right, Washington is focusing on exactly this thing of how to expand and bring more people of color into the leadership role, and how to get out and not using, but the people of color have more, are more grassroots people than the white people sitting around the table most of the time. So this is the big focus on healthcare as a human right, Washington, and I'm on the steering committee and the planning committee for that. But this should segue into what we were supposed to be talking about today, is what our chapter strategy is for the, the coming year. So let me just flash up this agenda here again, just briefly. PNHP goals for 2021. So we've always needed new members, new member recruitment. But problem is we're all retired and we don't go into the hospital every day. And, you know, with the COVID thing, it makes it even more difficult. You know, we do have the Zoom platform and it would be nice to get more people joining our Zoom meetings. Tonight we haven't had this few people in quite a long time, so I'm not exactly sure why that is.
Well, I think we have to re-energize our outreach committee. Unfortunately, the chair of that committee is not on this call, but I think we need to have a conversation about outreach.
How can we do it during the pandemic, which is likely to last another 6 months? You know, we got a whole lot of money, so we could put on a great annual public meeting, but I don't think doing it by Zoom is a great way. However, did anybody see the New York Metro chapter seminar on racism a couple nights ago? It was really good. Yeah. So it is, and they had, I don't know, 120 people watched it. But we can always say we had a great annual public meeting with more than 800 people showing up, and we had Amy Goodman out here. And Betty and I corralled John Nichols when he was here at Town Hall and got him to agree to be our speaker of the annual public meeting. And I think we got several hundred out because of his. But anyway, that's
David, do you think if we had an effort to go after members from lower socioeconomic groups and not have them pay dues, but just get the support and get them recognizing what we're trying to do to help them with healthcare, including people who are maybe are in trouble health-wise, or likely to be in trouble?
Well, I think this is what we're doing in collaboration with Healthcare as a Human Right Washington. And I'm a little disappointed that we didn't have any students show up tonight, because we had 4 of them at our board meeting, you know, just last week, and I thought we'd have at least 1 or 2 showing up tonight.
I think it's, having just quit work 3 months ago, I have to say, it's going to be so hard to recruit amongst our peers in the physician community, PAs, NPs, until their burden is lifted a little bit. I mean, there's just no stomach for it right now. Everybody's too tired. You know, it's a tough time. I think that my comment would be to take this first half of 2021 and really hone a marketing campaign.
I agree.
Specifically, should we have a Twitter account? Should we be on Instagram? Who's going to do it? I mean, you don't want to hear it, but that's the future of this movement. Just like, I mean, that's how Obama got elected. That's how Bernie's message got out. We can put stuff in newspapers and on buses, but that's not how it's going to get out to anybody under 50 anymore.
Well, we do have a Facebook page, and I post something from time to time, but
they're not even looking at that anymore.
Nobody else does. I mean,
I've seen your stuff on Facebook.
If there was traffic on Facebook, I think, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's, if you snooze, you lose. There's a gentleman named Chris Wong, who's in Society of General Internal Medicine. He's a general internist at
UW Medicine.
Harborview or
UW Medicine.
UW Medicine, yeah. He's a real nice guy. And he's on the American College of Physicians Healthcare Policy and Ethics Committee with me, which actually meets tomorrow night. And he was talking about that. And they're all over social media and using that as leverage. I mean, nobody even talks about anything else anymore, because it just, with the young doctors, with the young healthcare professionals, especially with the workload that they're all looking at, you know, it's always been god awful, as most of us here know, but now it's just amped up to the, you know, to another degree with no end in sight. So I really think that that's something, if the chapter is going to move forward and progress, we either have to do it on our own or we need to partner with some of these other organizations who are rowing in the same direction.
Well, we are doing that through Healthcare as a Human Right Washington, because all of the single payer organizations are members of that. And it's ramping up. Are you on the blast list? They put out a newsletter.
Yeah, I think so.
Actually, a pretty good newsletter.
After you guys kind of gave me all those names, I think I've signed up for most of that stuff.
Kelly Powers does that newsletter. She's very good at it.
So David, you know, while I don't think you get much success recruiting folks in our medical school at UW, but I think you will get a lot of positive response in the School of Public Health. That's, I think that's worth a try, emphasizing that. At least the graduate students and students from public health, I recall at a meeting we had years ago, inviting them to come to a big meeting area in the medical school. The public health folks outnumbered the medical students. They're very enthusiastic. And we could get, I think you're more likely to get faculty members.
Me?
As well as graduate students.
Can we go back to Sarah for just a minute? Because I think that she has something, I think that she has hit on a point that we've talked about in the past. And it had to do with advertising. It wasn't in social media though. What we had talked about doing were editorials in small newspapers, the neighborhood newspapers, the community newspapers across the state. And kind of tied to that would be if we wrote some editorials and asked some physicians that we know or whatever to kind of co-edit with us and co-publish that in the newspaper. And then
that's a good idea.
Sometimes they don't even have enough copy for their newspapers, and so they would be delighted, my guess is, to have us publish an editorial in their newspaper. And one of the first questions that we can ask is, what has your representative done for you during this healthcare pandemic? And how have they supported or not supported the public health services in your area? And it gives them an opportunity to write back, respond, think about it.
Well, that's a good idea, and we should put
that is a great idea.
Committee to submit it, an op-ed.
And it doesn't necessarily have to cost us anything if we use the little papers.
Yeah, Healthcare for All did that strategy over this last legislative session for Washington State. And we had, I think, Chris Cover-Bowles and a physician in
Ann Schaefer.
Spokane. Yeah, that's right. Dan Schaefer do an op-ed promoting the insulin for all thing.
Nice.
So it does seem that, I'm not sure what effect it has though.
We
Jerry,
really
do you know?
Think about their health.
I don't know, but I do know that we just heard that a group of 4 people in Spokane collaborated and wrote an op-ed piece that was published yesterday in the Spokane Spokesman Review that talks about how important it is to do something about universal health care. And what they're ending up with is doing something with the Universal Health Care Work Group in our state that has written a report that lists a timeline to get to universal health care in our state. There are some hurdles because you have to have federal cooperation to get anywhere. because you got to corral the federal money or it's unaffordable. But that they, with a friendly administration in the other Washington, getting that kind of cooperation for a state experiment has some realistic, some chance of doing it. Anyway, that's what their editorial was about, and it was published just yesterday. So I haven't heard whether the Spokesman Review has been burned down as a result of publishing that, or whether there's a huge march down through downtown Spokane for Medicare for all. I don't know, or somewhere in between, more likely.
That's something we could put on our Facebook page.
It's going to be on the Healthcare for All website, and it's going to be the lead article in our paper newsletter, which is in the process of getting its layout, should be in the mail next week, and it will then go on the webpage also. So I do publish the newsletter that I've done now for 17 years. It does get out.
Well,
And
we
we
should
send it
do
to
that.
all the legislators.
Wait, Sherry, I'm confused. Which newsletter are you talking about now?
Healthcare for All Washington.
That's the when you edit that you write. And
Yeah.
that's the thing from the Spokesman Review is going to be in that.
It's being reprinted there. It was in the Spokesman Review, and it's been properly attributed to both the authors. I got their permission. I didn't ask the Spokesman Review, although I asked the authors, do we need to ask for permission? And they didn't say. I'm assuming they don't mind if it's in a newsletter.
So, but I think that Marty Schmidt is right. It is very discouraging year after year. And every time that you go to your representative's office, they don't hear you. It's like your wallpaper, or your needs aren't important. And I think that people need to know that they have a right and they have an obligation and a responsibility to stand up for themselves and their neighbors and their children and their parents, and hold their representatives accountable. What are you doing about my health care? What are you doing about immigration? What are you doing about
That's Ralph Nader's dream team, Congress Watch, where somebody pays 2 people per congressional district to go to the fire station, to go to the teachers, go to the nurses, go to the grocery store and say, what do you want your congressperson to do? And we were going to report back to you, called Congress Watch. It's a dream team. But what about that third? I think we still have a third of eligible voters who don't vote. So, we need an issue to provoke them, and this would be the one. It seems a wallet issue.
Thank you.
But it's, it just takes.
Go ahead, Margaret.
I'm a homebody. I don't even, my car isn't even running. These things,
Does anybody have a
Thanks for coming into my home.
that's been written before that was well received, even if it was 5 years ago?
An op-ed?
Mhm.
How do you figure out if it's well received or not?
Well, I just moved here 3 years ago, so that's why I'm asking. I know I did a couple of things like that in Nevada, one of which fell like a lead balloon, and the other one was well received. And it's kind of hard unless the person who writes it knows, like they get feedback.
Correct.
They
Get feedback.
If you get something in the Seattle Times, it goes online and people have an opportunity to, make comments on it online. It doesn't get printed, but, and who has the time to follow all that stuff unless they wrote it? So.
I would be willing to work with Sherry and anybody else who's a good writer. My problem is I'm still a relative neophyte to what goes on in the state, and it's complicated here because of all of these different acronym affiliated groups. It gets a little confusing when you're coming in from another place. Like I said, it's an embarrassment of riches for the people in this state.
You know what?
For me, this is the only group I trust. I don't trust Healthcare Washington. I don't trust any of them. They haven't done anything. They're not even doctors. I mean, this is the only group I trust, and the only group I would recommend. That's just my opinion.
Well, Puget Sound Advocates for Retirement Action does a lot of good stuff. And in fact, they're having a webinar on Tuesday or February 2nd on Medicare. They call it Medicare Disadvantage. And they've got some really good speakers there. So I think we should all tune into that.
Yeah, I signed up for that with
I
Diane
signed up
Archer
for-
and
I think Wendell
Yeah.
is there and what's his name?
Wendell.
Mark.
Wendell
Yeah.
Potter.
Mhm.
What's the name of it?
Mark Dudsig too.
Yeah.
What's the name of the
Mark.
group?
Oh, it's Passara. Oh, let's see.
Puget Sound
Puget Sound.
Alliance
Alliance
for Retired Americans.
Retired
Well, that's what it originally was, but I think
Oh,
they
did they
changed
change
the
that?
name. I think it's Puget
Activists.
Sound Advocates for Retirement Action.
Oh,
Puget
okay.
Sound Advocates for
I still
Retirement.
have the old name.
Action. Right. They had the original name, and then there is some statewide organization that said you can't use that.
But the link
Oh.
is on our website to register. If you go
Right.
to the website, click on it, and you get.
On our website for PNHP,
Yeah, Western Washington.
Oh, that's the best. Okay.
So
Just
and I'll
go
be
there.
sending out a blast quote monthly report.
Yeah.
And
I actually think I've noticed that it's really, really important to get up to speed on, the evolution of Medicare Advantage. Like today, I got a mysterious envelope in the mail. I just, maybe some other people got it. It says Medicare notice on it. My husband got it yesterday, but you can't, it has like customer ID, notice date, monthly premium, call for eligibility. It doesn't tell you anywhere on the thing what it is, except it has a little box at the bottom that says coverage explanation, Medicare Advantage, and it says may include the following benefits. And guess what's included? Everything: dental coverage, wellness programs, transportation benefits, monthly over-the-counter allowances, and more. And so people are getting this stuff like regularly, and most people, I've discovered, most seniors don't even know the difference between Medicare and Medicare Advantage. I kid you not. I've had so many discussions with people who are like, oh, that's a privatized program. Oh, that has high administration. Oh, they really are truly ignorant. And so I feel like we in PNHP and other groups like this should be like, we should be, really explaining to people what's going on and how the Medicare system also is being undermined, because that will be used against us. And it's already been used twice. Every time I went to Delbaney's office, they said, oh, well, Medicare is not that good, and they went on and on about people's complaints about Medicare. So sorry, but that's not what we're asking for. But anyway, I do think that hopefully we'll get some more, talking points.
Here's a quick talking point from someone who just retired from 40 years of general internal medicine for Medicare Advantage. Anybody who talks about how wonderful they are, just remind them that they are exempt from the pre-existing disease clause. So they can and do discriminate and raise premiums ad lib.
They are managed.
There is no pre-existing condition thing with the Medicare Advantage plans. They can do whatever they want.
I didn't know that.
Yep,
This
you guys
needs
have
to be
forgotten
put
the Affordable
into
Care Act
plain
only.
English.
Affordable
Yeah.
Care Act only applies to people 65, under 65. All the Medicare, when they came out with the Advantage Act, all of those private insurers who do the Advantage plans, they can raise your premium if you have diabetes. They can decide to drop your coverage if you get cancer.
Yeah.
They can do whatever they want. And that stops people in their tracks, in my experience.
Well, straight Medicare does not do any of that. You pay a fixed amount.
Right,
according
no,
to
this is the secondaries, what
The
your
advantage.
Medigap plans.
Right.
Oh, you're talking Medigap, not
Medigap
Medicare
or
Advantage.
Well, Medicare Advantage, the,
Includes that, yeah,
Yes.
that portion, yeah. But you know, this
But you
needs
lose
to be
your
put in plain English so that people can really understand, because that's part of the, I think, part of our ability to talk to people is because we need to, put things into more popular ways so that we can really get our message across. Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking like the word underinsurance, should we even use that? I mean, that's not a really good, that's the insurance companies talking, not us. Anyway, just, it would be fun
I
to talk.
suggested that
I have to go, but that would be my comment, would be to focus on taking this 6 months and give our colleagues that are fighting the good fight and in the trenches a chance to catch their breath and work on how those of us who have time to think about it would be marketing what we feel is so important.
I have a comment
I
on
suggested to
perhaps.
my,
Go ahead, Merle.
Oh, I had a comment on maybe how to network, maybe gather more forces towards a national, I mean, the essential thing we're talking about right here is to get the people on board with it, is to emphasize on interconnecting through the state efforts, like our whole Washington. I know, it's not what we should be putting maybe our emphasis on, because we're not going to see the kind of groundswell that you saw maybe in Canada, or but just interacting with those people. They have a number of legislators at the state level who are supporting it, and it might be useful to try to see if at the federal level there are people willing to support the whole Washington, which is the state universal health care, and just by mixing with those people, which I found you could do when I was gathering signatures, is that you actually come into contact with some live bodies or actual legislators, and you might be able to build up support for people connecting with us. But I don't know. I don't know. It sounds a little different, but you might get ears for people that seem to be committed to what we regard as the wrong direction.
Well, whole Washington is in the Healthcare as a Human Right Washington Coalition, but they have crossed loggerheads with labor in the past. And so the Healthcare as a Human Right Washington Coalition has a lot of labor people in it. So they're a member, but they haven't really been invited into a leadership role, which I think the problem is that they want to do a referendum, and the labor people say you can't do a referendum without A, B, C, D, and E, and you don't have it yet, so you're going to lose. But they say, look at all the new people we're bringing into the single payer camp. Even if we lose a referendum, they've got the young people. They've got Gerald Friedman did an analysis of their whole Washington plan that I think has been dropped in the legislature. There's a couple of legislators that have introduced it. So I know a bunch of those people. They're very active in the one-payer states at the national level, and which has a good opinion of them. So I think we ought to see what we can do to get a little closer to them and say that we're allies of them. But we're getting toward the end here. One last thing here that I was thinking we could consider doing in 2021 is a leadership training event. And there's a lot of good stuff online. There's something called the Resistance School that has a bunch of videos. you know, that are just focused on stuff we'd like to be doing. So I thought we could, you know, do a leadership training thing over Zoom, you know, like a weekend or something, and watch a bunch of the videos and see how that would apply to what we might be able to do on our local level.
I'd be up for that.
I'm a little concerned about resistance. I just drove across 45th this evening,
I gotta go.
and we had a resistance group there who were saying no vaccines, no masks.
Really?
And yes, and they had signs
Right,
they were
Sarah.
on the overpass.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm over.
How big was it?
I was doing this.
How big was it, Kathleen?
There were about maybe 12 people, 13 people. I don't know. I didn't count because I
A
was,
council person in Yakima who supported the January 6th event. He's offering a event hall for weddings, funerals, graduations, birthdays, whatever. No mask required. and
yeah, a
So,
super spreader event.
what we need is those non-voters, the people who are just not taking a side. I don't know. I pray every day. That's what I do. I pray for it.
Does anybody know?
I pray.
Sorry.
I
Go ahead,
pray
Margaret.
where there's House Resolution 1384. Let there be the greatest liberator of workers our nation has ever known.
I was going to say, does everybody know what the position of Vice President Harris would be? She good chance she may replace Joe, given his age, before he finishes. I was wondering, I don't remember strong statements one way or the other, but maybe you guys can remember.
Well,
in the-
The debates. Remember the debates, George? She said first she supported single payer and then she backtracked.
She backtracked.
Yep.
Yeah, but the fact that she was supporting it, she probably backtracked for political reasons, maybe. I wonder in the heart of hearts if that could be, she could be somebody we could rely on eventually.
We
I don't
need
know.
to give her a political reason to be for it again.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think the reason she got to be vice president is because she backtracked.
Yeah,
And, you know, it's such a key issue.
Well, she's got it.
I think she's got some potential.
Yeah.
Pramila can work on her.
Yeah.
Well,
That to applaud Cori Bush from Ferguson, Missouri, representing St. Louis. You know her, brand new Congress.
Yes.
Yeah. So
well, it's 9 o'clock.
thanks,
Well, I
everybody.
gotta go.
Thank
Thank you so much,
It's
everybody.
9:01.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for coming on, Marty. Good to see you.
Nice to see all of you.
Okay.
Yeah, take care. Be healthy.
Yep.
Thank
Be
you.
well. Be well.
So let's take
Bye-bye.
up the SARA event on Tuesday.